body, mind, and soul in the upright position. We hope you enjoyed the ride.
Welcome to WAYSPACE. This is it. Here we are. Let's be here now. Holy shit, guys. Here we are. This is it. I'm recording it. Right now it's just me and myself and I, but at a certain point you'll be listening to this and experiencing it, or I guess watching it. I'm also taking video. Holy shit, here we are. Wow. How do I even start this? You know, it's pretty nuts. I guess you can tell that I'm excited about this because I'm like, holy shit, this is it. And one, I guess, philosophical thing to go off of is I don't think I want to do edits to this really. I mean, if I go to the bathroom or something, I'll do edits, but otherwise it's going to be me just like in conversation, experiencing all over you every week. That's basically what's going to happen. So yeah, as I get comfortable and get used to this, I hope you get comfortable and get used to this too. What is this? Like, what is this podcast? It's called WAYSPACE. What does that even mean? My first thought is that I don't know. My second thought is that I do know. And it's basically, you know, in podcast form, video form, whatever, and maybe that'll change over time. But it's the story of our awakening. And I say our awakening because it is our awakening. And if you're listening to this, then you're either in the midst of one yourself or supporting somebody who is, or have heard about it or don't give a shit about it. Either way, you're engaged with it somehow. So here we are. Thanks for being here. Yeah, so here's the thing. I have some things I want to talk about this episode, this very first episode ever. And I think, you know, going forward, I'll definitely be doing a lot of what are called solo casts, but also a lot of guest casts, if that makes sense. You know, I'm going to have people on because I want to have conversations with people. However, I recognize that this already is a conversation. In this moment, it's a conversation with myself as I'm talking, but in this moment also, it's a conversation with you, even if you're not responding to me. Although feel free to respond to me at any point. If you don't like something I say, just be like, fuck you, dude. Or just be like, yeah, dude, because that's what I do with podcasts. So that's another part. Basically, I've gotten so much out of long form conversational podcasts that I just feel like I was like, you know, okay, as this shit happens to me, I mean, at one point, am I going to be perfect and ready to talk about everything that's going on in my life and everything that's happening to me in a way where I feel like I can talk to people and give advice or whatever it is I think I'm supposed to be doing with this. And I realize like that's not actually what's been so beneficial to me about listening to these podcasters and people that give talks. In reality, what's actually happening is it's giving me an opportunity to be in conversation with myself and open to parts of myself because that person is opening to parts of themselves and opening to the world. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm doing basically what I've always wanted to do. I'm opening myself with sincerity to you, person who is listening to me, future people listening to me, whatever, in a way where basically I'm in some ways setting the example for you to feel like you can do this yourself, but also just for myself. Like, this is a selfish thing. You know what I mean? Like, I need to do this. I've wanted to do this my whole life. My whole life, I've wanted to explain what the fuck's going on. And people are like, Jack, don't explain so much. You're overanalyzing. And that may just be a voice in my head telling me that. I don't know. But I definitely have felt that. You know what I mean? And I think this is an avenue for me that I've put off for a long time because I felt like I had to be in a perfect place in order to be able to do this. And now I see, in one sense I am, and in one sense I'm not. You know, I'm definitely not perfect, but I think I've come to a perspective that allows me to experience my perfection. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of us are kind of going through that right now. I think between COVID of the last, you know, year or over a year now, and just the ways that being in this society has affected us, we're kind of all going through some form or fashion of this. And that's another reason why I'm doing this, you know, is to basically like touch base, like be in this place that I'm calling WAYSPACE, which is just like the place in which we all hang out as we're going into the way of our lives. And in my case, I would call that awakening, my spirituality, the mystical sense of things. And so, in terms of like what this show is or podcast or whatever you want to call this, it's WAYSPACE, the story of our awakening with a little bit of commentary, and just like hanging out and chatting. And it's not really a big deal because we're all bound for it anyway. So that includes art, that includes my music, that includes my friends' music, that includes talking to people that don't give a shit about, everything I just said in terms of their own lives. Like if you feel like you're not spiritual or whatever, that's okay. I'm talking about what's going on with me. And I have a feeling that I'm going to be talking about it in a way where you can connect with it without having to be like super aligned with everything I say. I mean, if I wanted everybody who's listening to this to feel like that, that'd be kind of silly. And I'd, fall on my ass pretty quickly. So in that respect, I'm not even setting it up for that. In many ways, it's like I said, I'm really just like experiencing all over you right now, and you can experience all over me, So yeah, and I think that, I have some things that I definitely want to cover in terms of what this podcast is going to do. And I think the story of what's going on with me will come out as well. But what I want to start with, and, we'll see how this goes, but is this entry from this book that I've been reading for the last, honestly, probably since a little bit before COVID, probably like February of 2020. So it's been over a year. I've already gone through the whole book, and now I'm coming back around again. And it's basically just an entry. It's 365 Tao by Dangming Dao. And it's, it's just like a daily Tao text, just daily spirituality, daily entry. You know what I mean? And when I was reading the one today after I meditated, I was like, oh, I feel like I'm going to have to read this one for the first podcast, because Taoism is in very much so like sort of the foundational part of my spirituality. Like even when I was like, like in the depths of my atheism, I sort of was still open. This was like the first thing I opened to, you know what I mean? So yeah, so I'm going to read that, and then I'm going to talk about it a little bit. And I think it's going to lead into what the fuck is the point of all this shit, So yeah, let's read it. All right. So there's a part where it's a little bit of a poetry type of thing, and then some commentary. So I'm going to read it all, and then I'm going to talk about it. So the entry is called Latent, and this is the poetry. Prophets and priests teach the form of Tao. Tao's essence cannot be taught. It is latent and cannot be known by learning. Why do religions wither and become extinct? Because they are only the works of people. After all, religion and spirituality, though related, are not synonymous. Religion is the creation of people and cultures. Spirituality is the direct personal relationship with Tao. Religions often degenerate into convention, ritual, and corruption. They are imperfect. When their creators fade, even the holiest words gradually lose their power. Our spiritual problems don't substantially differ from those of our ancestors, and today's truths still attempt to find the same spirituality as before. Why? Because all truths eventually point to Tao. And Tao has always existed latently, unbroken and eternal. We may begin our investigations in the realm of the religious, but once we clear away the distortions and interfering aspects of our own consciousness, we enter the realm of Tao. Once that happens, there is no need for religions. If we were to have a genuine spiritual experience, it would be lunacy to then go out and try to become religious leaders. We would only be repeating the same mistakes of countless other genuine seekers. It would be far better simply to be a nameless follower of Tao. Then we avoid the contradictions of social action. Yeah. So I read that and I was like, fuck, maybe I shouldn't be doing any of this. Maybe I shouldn't be speaking about my experience like in a way where it can hopefully help people or whatever. And then I was like, okay. Hold on. First of all, those are a bunch of fears going on that are like right before I'm about to record this first episode. Of course, I'm going to have these fears about like, oh, is there similarities between what I'm doing and other people? Of course there is, first of all. Is there similarity between my name, the name of my podcast and other podcasts? And like, oh my God, oh no. And it's like, what am I aiming for here? I think I think in those fears, I was aiming for what they're saying is a lost cause to do, which is all of a sudden to be this like spiritual leader that says, this is how you do it. This is how you do it, which is just like, I feel like that is just like, yes, that would be so silly for me to try to do that, you know? One, because it would be not helpful and not really point people in the direction they actually need to go. But also that it's just not helpful to myself. Like, I'm doing this because it's going to be helpful to me, not because I feel like I have this responsibility now that I have, you know, whatever kind of awakening experience, which is like, you know, it's like, okay, great, dude. Awesome. But like the crux of it feels to me like I can do whatever I'm going to do, like recording this podcast, talking about my experience in life, in my spirituality, in the mystical aspects of my life, in the non-mystical aspects. It's all mystical, but you know, that's for another time. The crux of it is that like I don't need to do it with attachment, you know? Like I can just, like I said, I can experience all over things and just like talk and just express what's going on with me in the hopes that in the hopes that it's just that's all I'm doing. And if it's helpful, fuck yes. If it's not helpful, fuck yes. But stronger fuck yes if it's helpful, of course. And in that respect, it's like, I'm not here to be a teacher. I'm not here to be a leader, but I'm also like here to enjoy that if that ends up happening, you know, and that's fine. But I also recognize that like I've got a long way to go myself. You know, I'm embracing these imperfect aspects. I'm doing my own path. And I think at this point, and the reason why I'm starting it now is that I think this is the best time to do it, where I'm uncertain, but feeling like the seeds have been planted, the flowers are beginning to bloom, and it's time for me to share what's going on with me in the most like open way, like in the way that I've always wanted to be with everyone. I grew up like wanting this and feeling like there were just reasons that people would feel fear or think I was weird or whatever about just being sincerely open with what the fuck's going on. And I'm here to just do that, you know? And if it transpires into looking like something that is, you know, in my spiritual texts and teachings looks to be like, you know, inappropriate, like why would you talk about this? You realize like, okay, forget whether I'm talking about it or not. I'm just doing what is coming naturally to me through intuition. You know, I'm following Tao. I'm not even following it. It's just going out, you know? And, you know, if you have no experience with the word Tao is sort of like God or nature or the way of things. I'm not going to say more about that because the more you try to explain it, the further you get from actually explaining it. So in that sense, don't need to say too much, you know? I think the best thing that we can do is experience each other, and you can feel what I mean in the way that I experience what I'm experiencing and share with you. The style and the way that I do it is ultimately just as important, if not more important, than the actual content of what I'm saying. So that was, I guess, the intro. I think this will vary up. Who knows? You know, it's going to be different each time. But at the same time, it'll be the same, you know? And yeah, I'm leaving all my stumbling in there, I think. I enjoy it. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be nice to have it in there so you know I'm a fucking human being. All right. So what the fuck is the point? What's the point of this? What's the point of the podcast? What's the point of life? What's the point of death? What's the point of anything? I mean, in terms of the podcast, I kind of have been talking about it, which is the point of the podcast is just to be a place where I can unload what's going on as it all goes on. I can share my experiences, realizing from my own perspective and hopefully from your perspective that while the content and the form of our lives are different, what's going on in many ways is the same fucking shit, you know? Like, it's just the same shit. And we're all bound for that awakening, enlightenment, whatever. It's coming to us. And so now the main thing that we got to do is just be here to remind ourselves and to remind each other that we're bound for it, that it's getting better. Not even just better. Our perspective is getting better. You know what I mean? And that, I think, can help us not be like just pendulum swinging from one side to the other. Good, bad. I'm happy today. I'm depressed today. I'm happy today. I'm depressed today. And we can kind of like whether it's on the depressed side of the pendulum swing or the happy side of the pendulum swing, we swing and let ourselves swing so far up, or maybe just float up to the top where we can watch it swing. And we can just watch it and hang out and enjoy it as we awaken more and more and more. So yeah. So that's the crux of that stuff, in terms of the point. And, I like it. I think I'm going to keep doing it. I'm looking forward to having guests on and being in conversation with them. And I'm also looking forward to just doing these solo casts and establishing it that way, because at a certain point, I want to be able to make this a conversation between me and you. That's the big thing. And the more that I can do that, the better, So, okay. So the name, I kind of talked about the name, right? WAYSPACE. It's sort of has a ring to it that is related to other things with the word space in the name, but it's also my own thing. It's kind of a mixture, which I'm coming to really appreciate, between sort of this like meditative understanding of like creating more spaciousness. That's certainly an aspect of it. The way aspect of it, which the way is sort of like the synonym for Tao. It's like, if you translate it to English, that's kind of like the closest thing you'll get. And I just feel like I want to create a place where it's not, obviously not maybe one day it'll be a physical space, but even if it's not physical, it's more about a state. So when you're listening to this, hopefully you, especially if you listen to multiple episodes, you'll be in a state in the same way that I'm in a particular specific special state right now. It's not unlike when I do my live streams, like I'm in a particular state. It's not unlike when I do performances. It's not unlike when I exercise. This is its own state. And I want to really appreciate that. And I think calling it something that is a space with the understanding that it's WAYSPACE, so it's a spiritual, mystical space. So it's maybe not a space that you could say is all physical, but is more about the state in which you are related to the physical world and your emotions and the way that you're processing things and how receptive you're being. That is sort of the goal with that. And the name can just be, to those of us who get that or are getting it or can just appreciate what it's like to listen to something and just be open and just be like, this is what he's saying. Okay. Whether I agree, don't agree, have thoughts about it or not, you're still in a place where you're open. And I think that for me in listening to podcasts has been huge in terms of being receptive. It's the same reason why I love listening to audiobooks and like going on walks, it's just a way to receive what's happening or receive information or receive teachings or receive commentary in a way that is also teaching me how to open and be willing to receiving. Okay, so what do I want to do? What do you want to do? What are we here for? Are you here because you want to just support me? That's great. Thank you so much. Are you here because you're looking to get something? Maybe both. Maybe support me and get something. Do you know what that something is? I certainly didn't know what that something was when I was listening to all these podcasts for a while. But I also kind of did. I also kind of knew that the best that I could do in terms of describing it, and it's still kind of this way, is I want to just figure this shit out. Like, somebody tell me how to figure this fucking shit out. Like, what the fuck's going on? How do I figure this shit out? I've popped up on this Earth world thing that we call Earth with this seemingly what looks like some kind of physical like body parts. And I only say that because that's what other people told me. And it seems like I can do one action and then it affects something else. And then that action happens and then that happens. And then there are other things like there are these things that I can't really see, but I feel them, and we call them feelings and emotions. And they seem to have an effect on things, but it's not really totally clear why or how. And yet we just keep kind of going. Like we're just moving, like everything's just kind of moving. Even if it's still moving in some way. It's moving in and out of your awareness. It's, a car moving on the street. There's stuff going on. And, that's a pretty trippy place to be. Like whether you're taking psychedelics or not. And I've taken psychedelics and it's trippy, but the biggest trip of the psychedelics, at least in my experience, is it makes it really just makes everything trippy. Like now I just, you just gain this appreciation for what the fuck is going on. Not like you know what's going on, but more like, whoa, what the fuck is going on? And the best that you can do at a certain point is just give up trying to explain it all and just feel it, just experience it. And, that's what I want to do. This is very clearly to me, like doing this podcast is an extension of my psychedelic experiences, my spiritual experiences, my meditation, the ways in which I've exposed myself to different spiritual practices and spiritual traditions, religious traditions, mystical traditions. And I'm going to talk about all those. I'll probably do like reports on different ones or whatever, I'll figure out how I want to do it. And I will say though, I don't want to have this too structured. I definitely just kind of want to let it out, so that, I'm through 3 bullet points of the notes that I had. So I will have notes, but I'm 20 minutes in, talking about this. And that's just because I'm letting come out whatever's going to come out. Almost like, when there's a meditative practice where you can sort of just pose a question to yourself, and maybe you hear it in a guided meditation, or maybe you go into the meditation with the question, or you write a question on a notebook before you go to sleep at night or something like that. And you just watch what comes out. You're just there for yourself as everything comes out. And in this case, I'm actually going to speak it out loud. And maybe that's a little risky because who knows what the fuck I'm going to say. But that's my point about the point, is that here is an opportunity to trust myself with whatever the fuck I'm going to say of any of my experiences, knowing that I am just going to be open. I am going to open to what arises and talk about what arises as it's relevant. I mean, I'm not going to be like super incoherent or some shit. Like I'm going to be coherent and like have it make as much sense as I can. But at the same time, like this is also sort of a mess, It's like it's a tidy mess. Like there's stuff all over the place, but it is kind of tidy. Like I want to present it in a tidy fashion where you can feel that this is not the first time I've thought about any of this shit, And I kind of like it that way, unless I have guests and they're presenting things to me that I've never heard of, and you'll know when that happens. This is all stuff that I've thought so much about, and it's just like spewing out of me, and I'm just like a geyser and letting it come out, And I think that it would be great for a lot of us to be able to feel like we have a place to do that, because we live in a society Okay, look, we're in a situation here where we just have a lot of reasons to have energy that we like keep repressed or pent up. And I know I've got it. I can feel it in my hips. I can feel it when, I get anxious and my legs start to shake and I have what's called neurogenic tremors. Like I can feel the energy rushing through me. And I know I'm not ultimately separate at all from any other person or living being or just existing stuff in this world, in this universe. So I'm definitely not alone in that, in terms of having energy that goes untouched or unsolved. And I think meditation is a great place to have that, but I don't think it needs to be the only, particularly because I would consider this meditation too. I mean, I think it all depends on how you do it, but in this case, I would consider this to be an extension of my meditation practice. And I only say that because I have done enough meditation, not like a ton. I'm not like some super meditation expert, but I've done it enough consistently for a long enough period of time that I have a felt sense of how the mechanisms for meditation work. You know what I mean? So in that sense, I intend to use this as an extension of meditation so that you, who is listening, feel encouraged to do the same. I don't mean that you have to all of a sudden figure out what the fuck I mean. I just mean you're listening to this. That's all, So yeah, that's kind of what I want to do here. That's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about like art, the creative process, talk about Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. I'm sure that, metaphors from that book will come in, and my experiences from that book will come into this podcast. All these kinds of things that have impacted me a lot over the last, year or longer. Although the last year, I would say, basically I started, using psychedelics on a consistent but not frequent basis, if that makes sense. Like pretty much from the beginning of using psychedelics, I I could maybe it's just my personality or something, my karmic predicament, but I just felt this sense of like, oh shit, oh shit. Like it's like a big day going to like Six Flags or something. It's like you go to Six Flags all day long. The next day, what do you want to do? I wanted to rest. Whenever I went to the amusement park for a whole day and rode roller coasters and everything, I needed rest. I needed to integrate everything that I learned and everything that I experienced into my regular daily life. And I would say that's the way that a lot of people that have like experience with psychedelics or are experts or are guides, they often talk about integration as a very important thing, as well as set and setting and sort of finding basically a way to ritualize it for yourself, but in a way that feels right to you. You make the ritual, not use somebody else's. Although that can be fun too, but I think it's really important that before you do that, you find a way to ritualize it for yourself so that you feel safe and at home when you use, a substance, or you do meditation, or you write stream of consciousness in your journal, or whatever it is that you do to get in touch with whatever it is you're trying to get in touch with. But for me, one of those things is psychedelics. And, my first trip was back in, I want to say December 2018. But it wasn't, I've always been sort of a, like, let's play it super safe, kind of person. Like, let's play it super safe. And so, I think that relates into like the way in which part of it is I wanted it to be sustainable. And because I recognized how powerful these tools could be. And ultimately I'll get into this more, but I think it's all me. And it's like simultaneously the psychedelics do something to me, but it's really more like I'm using the psychedelics to do stuff to myself. And I don't really need them either way, but they're fucking amazing. Like, as tools that clearly seem to work for me. So great. And like that, in that respect, I had a pretty nutty trip last year around this time, around my birthday in May. And it was like, I finally was in a place with my spirituality where I was ready to crack open the pain that was within my heart and within what I came to see as the heart of my ancestry and of the generations that came before me. And I wasn't really able to recognize what I was making connection with. I thought it was all my own shit, And in some ways it is all my own shit. I'm not going to deny that, but it's also like my own shit affects other people and other people's shit affects me. Is my stuff, and my stuff is their stuff, when we really get down to it. And so in that sense, it was huge. I didn't know how to handle it. I had a breakdown for sure. And, it really set me on course to open myself and take a new sense of a leap of faith. Leaps of faith have always been scary things in my life, like even getting all the way down to skateboarding or telling somebody that I had a crush on that I liked them. Like, skateboarding, for example, like the amount of times that I went off a stair set to try to kickflip a set of stairs or varial heel a set of stairs, and I just would not commit. I would just like jump and let the board go and not commit to it. Like those leaps of faith have always been like this connected source of challenge to me. And it felt like psychedelics, amongst other things like performing on stage and things like that, have been huge moments for me in terms of really reckoning with that longing to take the leap of faith. And I mean, yeah, and with that trip last year and on the subsequent trips since then, all the way up till my most recent trip, like that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been learning how to do. And the biggest thing is it's learning to trust myself again, to trust myself the way I trusted myself before I took birth in this life. Like when I was so trusting of myself that I didn't even exist. It was just the trust of coming into existence. That was it, It was just like love coming forth as this newborn child that was named Jack. And to me, awakening is not about, getting back to that per se, but recognizing the value of unconditioned awareness and love in such a way that we can integrate it into our lives now that we have all this karmic shit going on, all of our life predicaments. Now we have that, and we can have access to both. We can be both God and human at the same time. And, in that sense, for me, like psychedelics have become this amazing way to sort of check my work, as I go. Just like meditation is a way to check my work every day. Just like my morning pages, that's something from the Artist's Way, which is 3 pages stream of consciousness, is a way to check my work every day. And it's not checking my work like, are you right, are you wrong? It's checking my work like caring for myself, being there for myself, being in touch with the tender parts of me, making space for that, All right, sip of water time. Yeah, so I really look forward to just sharing more as I go and kind of getting a sense of what I'm going to talk about and talking about it, but using my experiences as the format, and formatting things so that at the same time it's a mess and sort of this tidy sense of, okay, me, Jack, I've thought about it. And I'm sure you've thought about these things in your own ways in your own life, because I feel like this stuff that I'm talking about, like the feeling of what's going on behind my words right now, is something that every single person thinks about or experiences, because of course we would, and whether we like to be super conscious of it or not, I can feel it being there. And we all have our own ways of relating to it. And this is my way, and honestly, I just feel fucking privileged to be at a point where I feel like I'm able to share this with you and have the opportunity to open myself to you, so that hopefully you open yourself to me and to just the people in your life and to yourself. I think we need a lot more of that. Not even we need a lot more of that. I mean, we do, but we're going to get a lot more of that. That's a huge thing, is I can feel that we're going in that direction, we're going there, right here. That's where we're headed, and yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, I'll probably talk plenty more about psychedelics, which, that's one thing in my life that not everybody knows about, is like the substance use aspect of my spirituality and how I engage with the world as a person. So that's one thing that's kind of new to some people and not so new to other people. But, I really have a perspective now on this where I have a lot of fears about having to explain myself to people in my life. And I'm here to do that. I'm here, like, if you're like, holy shit, Jack, I didn't know this stuff about you or whatever, just know that I'm here to talk to you about it too. Like, I'm not saying fuck you if you don't understand me. Like, I'm saying you do already understand me. In the way that you know me, you already understand me, because I've wanted to be sincere my entire life, and I just hold back certain pieces of information for the benefit of my relationship with other people. But I'm here to recognize that the relationships that I have with other people, the more sincere and open I can be, maybe there will be some pain along the way or misunderstanding or whatever. But ultimately, the deep aspect of the connection that can happen when you, even just me, myself, or any of us, truly open in a way that is, we know it's true because we get scared, like I did, like I am. But it's so amazing when you do that, because you show other people that they can do it, and you show yourself that you can do it again and again and again. And so, yeah, and I'm going to be talking more about sort of my spiritual leanings. I don't know. My sense of just spirituality. I mean, do I even need the word spiritual? Like, my mystical sense, my life experience, my being, it's just going to come out, this is a place where it's just going to come out. And that's what's going to happen. And it's already happening. And yeah, I think it's going to be great. And I really appreciate you listening. And yeah, so, if you got questions for me or whatever, hit me up, and maybe I'll just like answer questions in the podcast itself in the next episode. Yeah. So what's the point? I don't know, but also this is the point right here. This is it, All right. Well, that's it. It's been about 35 minutes. I think that's a good length for the first episode. I love you so much. Thank you so much for listening. God damn it. We made it. We fucking made it. All right. Till next time, here's to remembering who the fuck we are. Peace.